Welcome to the Sports Watchdog Radio Show, hosted by Mason Kern. He keeps his nose to the ground to report on what's trending in professional and college sports, to inform, enlighten, and entertain. And now it's
the Sports Watchdog.
the Sports Watchdog, Mason Kern.
Hey there, everyone. Welcome to the Sports Watchdog Radio Show on NBC Sports Radio, AM 1060 Phoenix. As always, I'm your host, Mason Kern, joining you every Sunday, and I've got some great stuff for you in the show today. Going to be really exciting. We have a great interview with John Bronson coming up. He was the former NFL tight end for your hometown Arizona Cardinals. We'll also have sports hot topics for you, as always, and your favorite, my favorite at least, interesting happenings on the Hardwood. So stay tuned. Lots coming at you this episode. All right, guys, in Sports Hot Topics this week, we're going to talk about college football because this past week was the National Signing Day. February 6th marked the end of the 2019 cycle in college football recruiting, and I'm going to kind of just walk you through which teams did the best, which teams maybe needed a little help, and how your Arizona teams fared in the Pac-12 and the state of the Pac-12 as a whole. So looking just at the top 10 of the recruiting rankings, not really surprising, Alabama tops the list at number 1. Pretty unreal recruiting class. They signed only one 3-star prospect, and that 3-star prospect happens to be the number 1 kicker in the nation. So really just restocking on all their assets across the board. Number 2, Georgia, coming in just a few points behind Alabama, and these classes are pretty historic. Just in terms of the point totals, these are according to 247 Sports composite rankings, in where these schools finished up, just FYI. So Alabama number 1, Georgia number 2, Texas rounding out the top 3, with Texas A&M finishing at number 4, just 2 points behind their in-state rival. Rounding out the top 5, though, LSU, and then just in order, rounding out the top 10, you have Oklahoma at 6, a Pac-12 school in Oregon at number 7, Michigan at 8, Florida at 9, and Clemson at 10. So despite Clemson winning the national title, they do come in at 10th place in terms of recruiting. And if you look at the top players in the nation and where they went, you have Nolan Smith, defensive end, number 1 recruit in the nation, who signs with Georgia. Kayvon Thibodeau, the another defensive end who actually started out as the top recruit in this 2019 class, but some fluctuation has him finishing at number 2 in the 247 Sports composite. He signs with Oregon, the only 5-star prospect in the nation to sign with a Pac-12 school. That's a huge win for Mario Cristobal and staff, obviously. Derek Stingley, the cornerback, 5-star, signing with LSU, the number 3 prospect in the country. Jaden Hasselwood, wide receiver, 4th-ranked prospect, signing with Oklahoma. And rounding out the top 5, you have Antonio Alfano, strong defensive end, strong side, coming in at number 5, signing with Alabama. So just kind of across the board, the SEC doing really well with some of the top recruits, especially with the 5- and 4-star recruits. But shifting to your Arizona schools, Arizona State finishing with a 31st ranked class in the nation. That's just across the board nationally. Comes in 5th place in the Pac-12. So right there in the middle with Antonio Pierce, their recruiting coordinator and linebackers coach, really spearheading just their recruiting efforts across the board. They had a big, strong presence in California, straying away from what former coach Todd Graham did, but 5th in the Pac-12, Jaden Daniels, high 4-star prospect, top 35 in the nation. Recruit is their top prospect, with Joey Yellen and Ethan Long, two other quarterbacks they signed in this class. But overall, they had 4 4-star recruits. which is good for fifth in the Pac-12. Like I said, if you look at the University of Arizona, they're a little bit lower in their first year under head coach Kevin Sumlin. They fall to 10th in the Pac-12, one four-star commit, and they pulled him late. It's from the same school where their quarterback, Grant Gunnell, comes from in St. Pius X in Houston, Texas. Grant Gunnell is their 3-star quarterback prospect, but their 4-star prospect, Jalen Curry, a wide receiver out of the same school. They went more the junior college route, which doesn't really technically apply to recruiting rankings if you pull from the JCs. But they have more early enrollees. They have 7 compared to Arizona State's 4. Whether or not that sets them up in a better place remains to be seen, obviously, in the season. But Arizona coming in 10th in the Pac-12 in recruiting rankings, whereas Arizona State comes in 5th. Obviously, both in new 10 years under new head coaches, Arizona with Kevin Sumlin, ASU under Herm Edwards. More success for ASU just in terms of bowl game appearance, better recruiting class. So we'll see if Kevin Sumlin can turn his program around here with the 2019 and upcoming 2020 classes. But the Pac-12 as a whole just not super appealing to a lot of the nation's elite prospects. Like I said, only one 5-star recruit. So we'll see if these the Pac-12 under Larry Scott can pull some more recruits that are higher ranked in the future. But don't go away, guys. The Sports Watchdog Radio Show on NBC Sports Radio, AM 1060 will be right back after this quick break.
If you're losing your hair or notice that it's getting thinner, listen closely. You can do something about it without messy lotions or drugs. Now you can get clinically proven hair growth results at home with the Hair Max Laser. Hair Max delivers nourishing laser light energy to stimulate hair growth right at the roots. It's FDA cleared, recommended by doctors, and best of all, it has an amazing 93% success rate in clinical studies in both men and women, so you can be sure it works. Use it just 3 times a week and experience new hair growth, increased density, and healthier, fuller, more attractive hair in just weeks with a 5-month money-back guarantee. Now, for a limited time, save 15% on your HairMax order at hairmax.com. Type in code RADIO at checkout or call 1-800-9REGROW. That's hairmax.com, code RADIO, or 1-800-9REGROW. Experience real hair growth and save 15% with HairMax.
Hey everybody, welcome back. You're listening to the Sports Watchdog Radio Show on NBC Sports Radio, AM 1060 Phoenix. I'm your host, Mason Kern, and joining us now is John Bronson, the former NFL tight end for the Arizona Cardinals. John has been an entrepreneur since his days in the NFL, starting a pro athlete and business network as a sports facility advisor, partner of a real estate investment company, and serving a role on numerous nonprofit organizations. John played college football at Penn State and is currently the co-founder and director of operations of Finger-Licking Dutch Stroopwafels. He also maintains an executive role at John Bronson Marketing. So with that, John is here on the Sports Watchdog Radio Show. How's it going, John?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Really good. Thanks for asking. So before I get into anything too serious here, I always like to ask athletes and former athletes just kind of their origin story and how they got their start in the sport they played. So for you, just how did you start playing football in the first place?
Yeah, my story is actually unique. I started at a very early age. My parents actually didn't want me to play football, so they were leaning me towards another sport that was less contact. But at the time, my uncle, who was on this earth at that time, he took me to practice, unbeknownst to my parents knowing about it. I ended up doing really good this practice, and all of a sudden, I go to a game back, when I was young, 49ers or 89ers or Pee Wee, and then so my parents were there to watch my first game, and I ended up having a really good game, and became the MVP of that game. And then before you know it, every year I kept sticking with football. My parents were fine with that, and away we went. So it's a very unique start to how I got started in football.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's really interesting. That's why I kind of like asking people, just because a lot of people have different stories like that. So yeah, that's definitely really interesting. And so obviously, I mean, you have a lot of success at an early age. You stick with it. That success obviously continues. When did you realize, like, hey, this could become something serious? I could go play college and then eventually maybe go have an NFL career.
I never really. It was twofold. I did always want to get to the NFL. That was, on my goal board when I was younger, junior high and high school, and obviously going into college. But at first, when you're that young, you're just playing just because all your friends are playing and it's something
Right.
to do. And then as you get older, you start to realize, okay, well, I guess I can be pretty good at this. And so I started just honing in the craft and really studying a lot of other players who have been very successful in football in my younger years, and just kind of following those steps to hopefully one day hope that I would get the same opportunity as those people had.
Right, yeah. I mean, I'm sure football is as much a mental game in terms of preparation and watching film study, and as much as it is physical at the same time. So you being able to do that, I'm sure, led to you having a lot more success as well. And then when you get to Penn State, you're playing college football, and then you end up transitioning to the NFL. I always like to ask kind of what that transition is like, just because, I mean, you from playing Division I football, it's such a jump from the high school level, and then to going to playing in the NFL, it's another really big jump. So what is that kind of transition like?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, from high school to college is a big jump, and for me, I came from Kent, Washington, which is on the obviously west side of the states, the west of the states. And going to an East Coast school, a big powerhouse at the time. I believe Penn State was number one and number two in the nation.
Right.
The number one and number two players coming out that year in 2000. So I'm going in not to like this. I'm going into like a lot of good players. My year there was, I think we're like number one ranked class coming in that year. So
Wow.
I had a lot of competition to look forward to, but I was ready for that. And so you just have to come in with just a mentality that you'll give it everything you have, 100%. And the same thing going from college to the pros. I'll tell you this quick story. When I had this call or this meeting with Joe Paterno, who was my coach at Penn State, and he had brought me into the office and said, hey, I played defensive end for 3 years, and we said you're going to move you to tight end my senior year. And so he wanted to move me to tight end after starting with defense for 3 years. And so I wasn't too enthused about that at first, but one, he believed that I'd be a better tight end in the NFL, and two, I had to trust that what he was saying was going to be correct
Right.
to give me the best opportunity to play in the NFL. So I went with that, made that transition from defensive end to tight end. Ended up having some great numbers. Obviously, caught the ball well, and transitioned to the league as a tight end.
Yeah, and I mean, having to kind of make that jump, and obviously, like I said, it's kind of hard enough already going from Division I college football to that NFL level. So having to switch positions then from defense to offense, was that tougher for you, or were you able to kind of acclimate relatively quickly?
I acclimated pretty well. I think it was in reverse at that time. It would have been different. So I actually was recruited as a tight end to Penn State, so they knew I could play the position.
Okay.
So transferring from defensive end to tight end was still a transition. I had to learn some things, but and learn fast. But I think it was a little bit easier than if I would have went from tight end to defensive end, which would have been total reverse. So now going into the NFL, going to the Cardinals as a tight end, basically, with very little numbers, at this point, I just had to go in as an athlete and try to find a place where I could fit in, and that's what I did. I prepared very heavily as a blocker and as a special teams guy, and kind of stuck that role, and that's what eventually got me a spot on the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a really interesting story for sure, and pretty inspiring that you were able to kind of stick with it and stick it out like that. So having, I mean, then you finally make it. I mean, you're playing at the highest level of football. What are just kind of some of your favorite moments from throughout your career?
You know, some of my favorite moments. Number one, I think I'll just kind of go the NFL round of things. Was number one having the opportunity. You know, you're in a room with going through camp, especially as I'm a rookie free agent, matching up against some of the world's best players, and just having that opportunity to be able to compete and win a spot there. That's something that day I never forget it. You're just like, wow, I just can't believe it. You know, I had 3 hours ago, I had $15 in my pocket to a lot more than that. And so that was one thing there. The other side to it is just playing with guys that are Hall of Famers or Hall of Famers to be. I mean, that was just something that you kind of really don't realize until way later. You know, being able to play with guys like Kurt Warner, Hall of Famer, right, or Larry Fitzgerald, or Anquan Boldin, which I'm sure he'll be Hall of Famer at some point, and Edgerrin James. I mean, these guys are your locker mates, your teammates. You're hanging out with them outside. So it's more than just the football games. It's just the camaraderie outside that a lot of people don't get to see, which I cherish a whole lot. And then also, now I would say, obviously, playing in my first game, as my first game as a Cardinal, that was really special. Being able to be under the under the lights. I remember, in Giant Stadium, and unfortunately, I got hurt in the third quarter of that. But just having an opportunity to be in those environments with the best of best, playing against Michael Strahan as a rookie free agent, that's like those are things that you'll never get a chance to be able to do again. So some good moments, great people, and definitely was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, throughout your career, lots of stories to tell along the way. But we've kind of talked about it a little bit here. Just all the transition that comes with being a football player from high school to college to the NFL, and then from the NFL to whatever you do next. And I feel like a lot of athletes don't pay a lot of attention to it, maybe more so now than in the past. But for you, I mean, like I mentioned, you were an entrepreneur while you were playing in the NFL. You were actively thinking about it. So what? First of all, why were you already thinking about it while you were playing? And then what have you been up to since?
Well, number one, I was in the bubble already. So I came in as a rookie free agent. And then so I'm every day, and there wasn't any downtime for me to, one, screw up on the field, but also I had to keep a pulse on what happens if I'm not here tomorrow. Right, and so my mindset was just a little bit different than maybe somebody who had a few more, made a few more bucks out of the gate, signing bonus, things like that. Some of the big first rounders and second, third rounders, they had a little more leeway than a free agent did. So that was always at the top of my forefront. And so with that, I try to take advantage of that same opportunity, being an NFL player and learning from people who have been successful in the business world. Many different people around Phoenix that had been successful in their own businesses. And so as a player, you have a great opportunity to be in front of people that have been very successful outside of sport. So I took advantage of wanting to be able to learn or be mentored around those people, advise those people to eventually help in things that I want to do later. And so I think that mentality for me was something that was important. I think guys that and any pro athlete, guys or gals that do understand that concept of that, you can't just allow your sports dollar or mentality to just try to carry you. You really got to focus on a what's next mentality.
Right.
You've heard the statistics. There's a lot, because the reality is about only 1%, maybe 1.5% of the people may have a chance to be completely stable from just their sport money, right? So that means everybody else is going to have to go into something else other than sport. And so the faster that you can transfer over from an information and an education standpoint, the better the transition will be as you move forward out of your sport career.
Right, yeah, I mean, definitely some pretty sound advice there as well. I mean, just the fact that you were able to kind of keep that mindset rather throughout your NFL career is definitely pretty commendable. But then for you, what just advice or how do you think other athletes kind of handle the transition from sports to kind of the rest of their future career?
I think that a lot of athletes, it's still tough. Look, even for me saying all of this, I still have what I call the gray area. That gray area is kind of an area where you still want to play. Maybe you still can play. Maybe you feel you still have something to prove, but those doors are slowly closing, right? And so, but you still got to stay fit. You still got to stay, eat all the right things. You still got to be, so you have all of this allocated to your sport life in the same time frame as you're slowly transitioning to your next life. And so that's kind of the gray area. So it's still really tough for a lot of players, but again, I'll say the faster that you could just get a pulse on information, I think that's the biggest thing. And being around people who have already been successful in the things that you want to do as a player, it will help the transition to do whatever you want. And that's what I did. And it's helped me a lot to transition to just being an entrepreneur altogether and learning those different traits. And so I've been allowed to go into different phases of business, whether it's been real estate or running a sports network, or whether it's sports marketing or even now selling cookies, right? So it allows me to be in these different traits because really the foundation of the business part is all the same once you get over that hump and understand those basic principles that can carry you to your next life.
Yeah, definitely really interesting and great advice there, John. Thank you so much for your time. We're running out of time. So where can our listeners go to get more info or just to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So today I'm co-founder of a cookie company called Finger Licking Dutch Stroopwafels. We have the best caramel waffle cookies that you'll ever taste. You definitely got to try some. You can find us on Instagram at Finger Licking Dutch, or also our website at fingerlicking.dutch.com. We're all over the place. Personally, John Bronson, just on Instagram, John Bronson 87 on Instagram, and you can just search to Facebook and find John Bronson, and I'm sure I'll pop up there. So plenty of ways to connect.
Yeah, there you go, guys. We'll make sure to find them on social media. Also find the cookies. They do, I can advocate. They do have some good options there for you. So, all right, everyone, the Sports Watchdog Radio Show on NBC Sports Radio, AM 1060. Be right back after this quick break.
Hey, travel lovers, if you want to up your luggage game, check out EagleCreek.com, an innovative and durable line that's sustainably made with PVC-free materials. One stellar option is the Orf Trunk 36, a big bag crafted for big adventure. It's hard to find upright luggage that puts as much into durable and useful features as this one does. Built with all explorers in mind, the Orf Trunk 36 is lightweight, dependable, and efficient. With wet and dry compartments, multi-point handles, a cargo net for internal compression or outside gear attachment, puncture-resistant lockable zippers, central lock point security, oversized treaded wheels, padded laptop sleeves, and more, this luggage seemingly has it all. It even has a key fob quarter key bottle opener. Plus, there's free shipping on all orders and a no-matter-what lifetime warranty. Shop now at EagleCreek.com. That's EagleCreek.com.
You ready to hoop it up? This is Happenings on the Hardwood.
All right, guys, as always, at the end of the Sports Watchdog Radio Show here on NBC Sports Radio, AM 1060 Phoenix, we're pivoting on over to the Hardwood. It's your favorite segment. It's Happenings on the Hardwood for you. And this past week, a lot of stuff went down. NBA trade deadline obviously shaking up the league quite a bit. I'm going to start with my Lakers. Trading Ivica Zubac and Michael Beasley to the Clippers for Mike Muscala. Don't love the deal. It frees up a roster spot, sure. Maybe the Lakers make a run at Carmelo Anthony or a possible Wayne Ellington, even though I'm hearing rumors that he probably will go to Detroit. But Ivica's a 21-year-old prospect who was really starting to come into his own here when he got more minutes, especially under JaVale McGee and Tyson Chandler. It was a pretty good system here for him. But he's now with the Clippers. Mike Muscala stretches the floor a little bit for the Lakers, get some shooting. Elsewhere around the league, though, we'll go to the Phoenix Suns because I know you guys are really interested in seeing what James Jones and company did. Not too much going on other than Ryan Anderson is no longer a Sun, which I'm sure a lot of you are happy about in terms of on-court production. They trade Ryan Anderson to the Miami Heat and get Tyler Johnson, point guard, in return out of Fresno State, who's gotten some rotational minutes with the Heat. They also get Wayne Ellington, but they are buying him out. He is becoming, once he clears waivers, it's looking like Wayne Ellington will probably sign with the Detroit Pistons. But so that's the only real move that Phoenix made on the deadline. There was no Anthony Davis movement. They held him, and whether or not they were just trying to field offers to release them to the public, which I've heard. I mean, I can't really speak much to that, but Anthony Davis is still on the Pelicans. Philadelphia 76ers made some moves. They acquired Tobias Harris, Boban Marjanovic, and they get rid of Markelle Fultz in return for Jonathan Simmons from the Orlando Magic. Really, Elton Brand, it could be in the conversation for Executive of the Year if these moves pay out, making win-now moves, trying to make a deep run in the East, in the playoffs. But the Milwaukee Bucks also doing some things. They acquired Nikola Mirotic and get rid of Thon Maker, much to the dismay of Giannis Antetokounmpo, obviously his Greek friend. But, I mean, yeah, some moves being made in the East that are really interesting. Back on the West Coast, though, Sacramento Kings making some moves. They acquire Harrison Barnes. They lose Josh Jackson. But definitely some interesting stuff in terms of that deal. Harrison Barnes now on the Kings as they try and break into the Western Conference playoff race. Marc Gasol, back over to the East with the Grizzlies, is no longer in Memphis. He'll be on the Toronto Raptors for the second portion of this season as Toronto looks to continue to make their Eastern Conference hopes alive in the playoffs. But I mean, yeah, a lot of different moves happening on the trade deadline. And going to be really interesting to see, especially in the Eastern Conference, which team pulls away, because Philadelphia definitely has an all-star caliber starting five at least. The depth questionable, but the acquisitions, I mean, Jonathan Simmons is pretty good coming off the bench. And then Milwaukee with Mirotic in the fold now, and Toronto with Marc Gasol. Going to be really interesting to see who comes out of the Eastern Conference.
If you have a lot of devices that are always power hungry, get the Charge Hub Power Station 360 Surge Protector Power Strip from LimitlessInnovations.com. It's the most effective charging station on the market today. It features quick and convenient charging up to 10 devices simultaneously. That's juice for 10 devices all at once. The Charge Hub 360 is also designed with a safety power surge to protect all gadgets and devices while providing optimal charge. Find it at LimitlessInnovations.com.
Well, that's a wrap, everyone. Anybody wanting to connect with me, the Sports Watchdog, on Twitter can do so at @SportsWatchdog, and on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube as well at The Sports Watchdog. So until next time, keep your eye on the ball.
The Sports Watchdog. The Sports Watchdog, Mason Kern.